So I got Rob Muzzio here, Olympic decathlete, also a fellow Robinson alum. Rob hasn't seen me since high school, but I've seen a lot of Rob over the years. He's an incredible athlete. He played football at Robinson, all region football linebacker. But he was a decathlete at Robinson, went to George Mason, one of the first big recruits at George Mason University, won the NCAA decathlon 2 years in a row. And then ended up finishing fifth in the Barcelona Olympics, competed for USA in at least a few world championships as well. And now, among other things, he coaches track and field at Robinson. So anyway, Rob, thanks so much for doing this.
Oh, thanks a lot, Julian. My pleasure to be on.
Yeah. So just to give you a little background of the series, during the lockdown, me and some friends that played basketball in different areas of the area, all UVA grads, started a Facebook group, and we started posting pictures and talking about the old basketball games. And from that, I started doing a few podcasts. We had some great personalities. A lot of them you knew, or at least you saw play basketball when you were competing. And then, after I did quite a few podcasts, after a while, I'm like, well, there's a lot of other great athletes from the area that didn't necessarily play basketball. So I did Jill Ellis first. She was the first non-basketball person I did, another Robinson grad who became coach of the U.S. women's soccer team. And now you're the first track and field athlete, at least full-time track and field athlete that I've done. And if you had to pick a track and field athlete, it should be Rob Muzzio.
Oh, thanks. I got a basketball story for you.
Oh, great.
I was horrible. I sucked at basketball. I don't know if we ever had gym together or anything, but I couldn't dribble and run at the same time. I couldn't shoot. I couldn't do anything. I was in this competition called the Junior Superstars. Basketball was one of the events. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to lose those points. We went down to New Orleans for regionals. I couldn't miss a shot. Everything went in, swish, 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 swish. It was crazy. So after it was over, they're like, hey, you did well at regionals. You're going to nationals. Your basketball's amazing. Can you show us something? He throws me the ball. I missed everything. Right back to normal. I couldn't hit anything. So there's my basketball tie-in. So your basketball fans will be happy, or watchers.
So I think Roscoe Dean didn't miss too much with Rob Muzzio.
Oh no. I would have been the best water boy on the team. Fastest water boy on the team, I think.
Exactly. Well, so it's interesting. You were born in Würzburg, and it just so happens my wife, who you'll see wandering around the back, she went to Würzburg High School. So,
wow.
Is it safe to say your dad was military intelligence?
He was in the Army Medical Corps.
Okay.
He was a hospital administrator in Würzburg at the time.
Okay. So when did you get to the Robinson area?
Oh. So my dad was in the military. We moved all over the place. Right. We were in the Robinson area first in 1968, 1969 through 72, right after the big hurricane. What was that big hurricane? I can't remember. But anyway.
Oh God, yeah, I remember, kind of.
In 1972 or something. We saw the tornado from our house. Anyway. Then we moved away to Kansas and then Washington State, and then it came back again in 1976. So I went to Laurel Ridge Elementary for half of my sixth grade year, and then I was at Robinson for the rest, and in Northern Virginia for the rest, the rest of the time.
Yes, how did you get started with track and field?
So actually, I don't know, did you ever have PE? Yeah, PE with Mr. Hilgert probably, but what about Mr. Hughes? Do you remember Mr. Hughes?
Yeah.
Save
your money, Mr. Hughes.
Yeah, we had a track and field, segment where we did track and field, and we threw shot and discus, and I just fell in love with it. I was like, oh my gosh, you can throw something and not get in trouble. I'm like, I got to do that. And I just fell in love with trying to make the thing fly. And I have kind of a hyper focus OCD kind of personality. So once I get on something, I can't stop until it's perfect, and it's never going to be perfect. So went to the county. We had a county meet back then, which was basically Lake Braddock, West Springfield, Robinson. And ever since then, I started in the discus, and that's how it all started.
Wow. And at the same time, were you playing football as well?
So no. I played my first exposure to football was in Kansas. We lived Fort Leavenworth. I could see the penitentiary from my bedroom. But I played on the Dolphins, and it was a good experience because I learned that you can lose and it's okay. We lost every single game, and the coach he had to quit for some reason in the middle of the season, and all the kids wanted to quit, and most of them did quit. And I told my dad, I said, "Well, all the other kids are quitting. I want to quit." And he's like, "No, you're not quitting." And I said, "Well, Dad, I want to quit. Everyone else is quitting." He's like, "I don't care what they're doing. If you start something, you finish it." And that was a really good lesson for me early on, you know. And but we lost every game, 0-8 Dolphins. It was a great experience.
It sure was. Yeah. So were your parents athletic, and did they besides?
Yeah. My dad was a baseball. What's that?
No, I was going to say, did they put a lot of pressure on you in sports, or did it just?
Oh, not at all. No. My dad was a baseball player, and he was really fast, but he didn't pursue that. He pursued other things. My mom was a ballerina, so I got some really good genes. Very fortunate in that respect. Yeah. But not at all. They didn't push. My mom wanted me to be active, right? So she put me in gymnastics, judo, bowling, tennis, swimming. I mean, I did all these things when I was a kid because she just wanted me to do active things, which was great. But there was no pressure whatsoever. It was kind of a joke. My parents didn't come to any of my games or track meets or anything until they found out I was getting good. Then they were like, "Hey, maybe we better go watch him." Yeah. So no, there was no pressure at all. This is all, the things that they taught me were strong enough inside of me that helped me to drive to do these things.
Yeah. You have helicopter parents, you have pressure parents, you have bandwagon parents. So I guess who's
yeah, they were.
So when did you realize that you were going to be special? I mean, when I met you at Robinson, you were a great linebacker, great in track. I mean, I knew you were a great football player because I was on JV when you were on varsity, and I played against you in some regard. But when did you start knowing that, I'm probably pretty special?
So I haven't really considered myself special. I have to work really, really hard and to excel, right? Things didn't come supernatural to me, but like I said, I have this other side, like Monk, he keeps touching things, and he keeps touching things. Well, that's me with sport, but I'm the physical side of that. It's like, I will do something until I get it. Yeah. And after a while,
Monk, the pianist? You talking about the
Monk, the TV guy, the guy with the funny guy. You keep, you just can't stop doing the same thing over and over again. I have that, but it's from a physical standpoint of, if I can't get it right, I just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. If you do something enough times, you're going to get good at it. Yeah. And I was that guy. When we were in the 8th grade and we had that track meet, I lived up by Commonwealth Pool. I swam for the Commonwealth Cudas back when I was little, and I used to walk to and from school every day, all the way to Robinson, just so I could throw the discus. I mean, I would stay after school, and there was no late buses, so I'd walk home in the 8th grade. But I just couldn't stop. I would just, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of doing it because I loved it. It was a challenge, and I couldn't stop. I was just, nonstop. And so I don't know if I ever saw myself as being special. I think I saw it as I kind of had a never say die, never quit. I'm going to get it. And I don't think I would consider it special. I think it was, there are what I call freaks of nature, right? Guys like Tony Barton at George Mason University. He was a 7 high jumper or something. I remember we were doing lunges one day. He had, 225 pounds, and he was doing lunges across the gym. I was doing them with him. But he just decides in the middle of this workout that there's a bar up, it's at 7 feet. He just puts the weights down, jumps, and clears it in his flats. I mean, that's a freak of nature. That guy's special. I don't have that, right? I've never had that kind of thing, but I've been able to build enough to where I could do each of the 10 events good enough to total up some points that actually was competitive.
Yeah, but when you started running track, and you started doing track and field because you were also good in the field events, you weren't probably thinking about the decathlon at that point. You were just probably thinking about the
Right.
events that you're best in. Is that right?
Yeah, right. So I wanted to be a thrower. My goal was to be a thrower. But I was, as a freshman, I was 5'10", 155 pounds. As a sophomore, I was, I don't know, close to 6 feet, 165 pounds, 170 pounds. So, throwers are humongous human beings. I quickly found Al Order, and he kind of became an idol for me, Olympic gold medalist 4 times in a row, never ranked #1 going into the United States Olympic trials or coming out of it #1. Always winning the Olympics. And to me, I watched those, the documentaries, I read books, I studied his technique. I was totally into that. And I was just like, it's just amazing. But I just didn't get big enough. So Coach Hines, I don't know if you knew Maynard Hines,
Of course.
he was a genius. He said, hey, Rob, why don't you try the hurdles? And I'm like, oh, okay. So I ran some hurdles and I was, tripped and fell. And if you're not a hurdler if you haven't tripped and fallen. I mean, so I crashed and burned, but I kind of got it pretty quickly. And he was a good coach, so he brought me along very fast. He's like, hey, why don't you try the long jump? Why don't you try the high jump? Why don't you try? And he just kept adding events. And he finally said, hey, there's a decathlon at UVA in my junior year. He says, it was a decathlon this summer at UVA. Do you want to try one? I'm like, yeah, what is it? I'd never pole vaulted, never run a 1500. I had to throw college implements. I pole vaulted like 6'6" at me. I almost high jumped as high as I pole vaulted. An 80-year-old man beat me in the pole vault. But anyway, that was his foresight. He saw it, and he introduced me to all the events, and he was a great coach. And he got me started.
Now, do you think in today's world you would have been a track athlete? So, we pressure our kids. You got these soccer parents, you got lacrosse parents, you got basketball, AAU parents. There's so much pressure, and we put our kids in these sports and they specialize. Track athletes are desired in most sports. I mean, if you're good in track and field, you can play football. There's room for you in basketball. You got to shoot better than you generally, but there are room for you in a lot of sports. Do you think in today's world you would have still been a track athlete?
So that's interesting, and it's really hard to say because is everything else the same? I mean, do I have to have the same parents? Did I live in the same places?
Still all that's the same.
Was Mr. Hughes there to teach me the discus? All these things, but I hear what you're saying. And I think so, because the reason I went for the individual sport is I want to live and die by my performance.
Right.
I don't want to lose because somebody else didn't do their job, or somebody else didn't, went out and partied and drank or did whatever the heck they did. That turned me off on team sports big time. And you know what? If I'm going to fail, I'm going to own the failure, because I know my personality. I'm going to do it and do it and do it till I get better at it. And I won't make that mistake again. But you can't say that with a team, right? I never was fortunate enough to have a full team of people where everybody was as dedicated as I was. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, well, it'd be a really good team, and it'd be a hard team to find people of that caliber. But we can always dream. But let's go back to your high school track career. So I know you talked about that decathlon. Did Robinson have a good track team? I remember us being good in track. I think I know Lake Braddock was good. I know TC was good. We're good in track. Yeah. How did you guys do in high school track?
We did okay. I think we might have won a district championship or come close, and did okay in the region. We had pockets of good athletes. The cool thing about track is your team doesn't have to do all that well for you to be able to go all the way to the nationals, right? I mean, you can, if you're an individual and you win district regionals, you go to states, right? So it's kind of, we had pockets of very good athletes. And, back then, I think it was just Coach Hines and Coach Raines. Do you remember Coach Raines?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And I don't know how they did it, to be honest with you. Just the two of them coached the whole team. I think there was a distance coach, Will Albers, I think at one point. but there were times I don't think when he was around, and it was just Coach Hines and Coach Raines, and they were amazing. I just coached the pole vault at Robinson, and it was everything I could do just to do that. I can't imagine. At one point, I coached shot discus and pole vault, and I was over my head. I had no time for anything. I can't imagine coaching all the events like they did. I mean, I think they did a great job. Great job.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you learned from them that you use yourself as a coach? Are there things or styles or philosophy, interpersonal skills that you learned from them?
You know, I have to say, learning, doing something and coaching something are two totally different things. I never wanted to be a coach, right? I always said, you know, people say, oh, you want to get into coaching? I was like, oh, no way. Nothing to do with it. And I never looked at things when I was an athlete from a perspective of, I have to teach someone else how to do this. I would ingest it in my own way, and then I would do it. And there's a big difference between ingesting and doing and teaching. And I found that out when I started coaching the pole vault at Robinson. And I was just like, here, give me the pole. I'll show you how to do it. You know, and I would do it, you know, and they're like, yeah, but that's not helping me coach. I'm like, oh, crud. I guess I got to find out how to explain this. During that period of time, I wasn't really looking for things to take on for the rest of my life because I didn't want to be a coach. The thing that I learned from them were kind of the outside things, not the specific technical things. I mean, I learned a lot of technique, obviously, and that technique I then learned to translate over. But like Coach Raines met me at Robinson at 6 a.m, 3 days a week, and we'd practice high jump, right? Coach Hines would take as much time as he needed to get to all his stuff and help me to do my events. It was the dedication aspect of it. It was the go above and beyond, do the extra things. I did learn some drills and some things that I used to this day from him. But I don't know if I explained that very well, but doing something and coaching it are two 100%, you know, totally opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. So were you able to win? Were you like regional champ or state champ in any event, or did you just do, I guess, I don't even know if decathlon was a high school track event.
So it's not, it only is at the national level. So, right. So yeah, I was a 2-time state champion in the discus. I threw discus. I made it to states in the hurdles. I never ran all that well when I was at states. I placed in the shot put several times. A couple times I was like third and in the shot. But Virginia did not have the decathlon. Mm-hmm. So Coach Hines, again, got me into the junior nationals. And we went out my senior year. So 1 year after the first year of doing the decathlon, went out to the nationals in Bloomington, Indiana, I believe. And I competed out there. So that was my first kind of, the UVA one was kind of a home fun meet. The junior nationals was big time. There were kids, I competed against a kid from Stanford. There were kids in college at the time because you could be 19 or under. And actually I was 17 at the time, but yeah. Yeah.
Well, so let's go to high school football for a minute. So I've done several podcasts of players and coaches from your era. And my memory of the Northern District was loaded with talent. West Springfield had some great teams. Jack Brooks was a great running back. I think they had won state or got close to winning state. Woodson had Marshall Jefferson, a lot of good players as well. They were just loaded, coached by John Cox. TC, Carl Carr, just so many great athletes, so many great players. You know, Lake Bragg was always very solid. But Robinson, and I've done podcasts with a lot of different high school coaches in the area. I can't tell you how many different coaches of all different types of sports have brought up Ed Henry and how important Ed Henry was to them. Coach Henry was one of my neighbors. He had started at Annandale actually he started at Mount Vernon. He coached at Annandale. He coached at BMI. He went to Marshall. He went to Robinson. back to UVA, was featured in Remember the Titans. Just an amazing guy, raised a beautiful family as well. What are some of your memories of Coach Henry, and what did he mean to you?
Him and his wife, Roberta, they're amazing people. She coached me actually in the swimming. Part of the junior superstars was swimming, and she actually coached me for the swimming portion of it. So that was amazing. But Coach Henry, I just remember little things about Coach Henry. Damn it, Muzzio. I thought my first name was Damn it. Damn it, Muzzio, damn it. But hey, I kept trying, listen to him, and finally I got it right. Stand like an ape, shuffle like a squirrel. That was one of the things that he taught me, and I used that actually a lot. I'll tell you a funny story. One time, when I was growing, I was kind of awkward, right? I was kind of taller and thinner, and I didn't have real good balance. And so I got canned once, and I had containment. I got cracked back and got canned. Anyway, I bruised my tailbone, and I had to go to the doctor. So I go to the doctor, and this is the first practice after my doctor appointment. And Coach Henry yells, "Muzzio!" in front of the whole team. "How'd that doctor appointment go?" And I'm like, "Good, Coach." And he says, "Did he tell you that your optic nerve is what do you say, is your optic nerve is tied into, that area down there?" And I'm like, "No, sir, Coach. No, he didn't." He goes, "You know what that gives you, son?" I go, "No." He goes, "Well, that gives you a crappy outlook on life. Now get back in there." I mean, it was just, he came up with the craziest, funniest things. I enjoyed playing for him. I know we always had a good time. We won some, we won some good games. We lost some close games. One thing I remember is we would always play at UVA against GW Danville down at preseason. We would always either beat them, tie them, or be like one touchdown from them. They would go on and win states, and we couldn't get out of our daggone district. I mean, it was crazy. Crazy times.
Yeah, it was always the district was so close, and back then only one team would go to the regionals. So you had 4 state level teams at least always in that district. And
Danny Burmeister, Oakton.
And I forgot about Oakton. Oakton has some good players as well.
Yep.
Well, what about Coach Hilgert? Coach Hilgert was a defensive coach, and you were a linebacker. He was a funny guy. He had been with Coach Henry at Marshall. He was a Vietnam vet. He was just a very interesting character.
Yeah, Coach Hilgert was great. He knew how to handle me. He didn't tell me a whole lot. He would just tell me little things. "Muzzio, do this. Muzzio, do that." And that was it. Once he told me, I would, of course, I might fail a few times, but after a while I get it, and then he wouldn't have to yell at me anymore. But he was funny. He was a character. I remember when he'd get all excited, he'd turn that hat backwards, getting that stance. He was a good guy. I really enjoyed the football times.
Yeah,
they were fun.
You were all region linebacker, weren't you?
Yeah, so I was actually all region, all state, and all Met.
Wow, that's just amazing. Well, let's talk about a few of your teammates. One of the most electric and amazing football players I've ever witnessed in all my life was Slick Bailey, Henry Slick Bailey. He was a running back, and he could gain 40 yards and lose 20 yards on the next play. You never knew what was going to happen when he had the ball. Do you have a lot of recollections about Slick?
Yeah, of course. He also ran track, so I knew him really well. He was. Who could forget him hurdling the guy? With that picture of him, run down the boom, the big hurdle standing over top of that guy. And the amazing thing was he's not tall. He's not very tall at all. I remember he's special, right? He has special talents. I'll never forget. He was standing there. We had that 4-foot fence around the outside of the track, and when it came up to probably his chest, or close to it, 4 feet on a 5 foot. I don't know how tall he was, 7 or
probably 5'7", 5'8", yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty high. Well, he stood there and jumped over it he just went boing right over that fence like it wasn't even there.
Yeah.
That guy, he had amazing talent. Funny thing, I coached his nephew in the triple jump and long jump, Fabian Bailey, years after. So, and he did good. He was a 2-time district champion and placed at regionals, went to state. Yeah. Funny thing. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, but so I went to UVA after Robinson. I was at ROTC for a while, and one of the first guys I met at UVA was this guy named, he said was Vance or Vince something, but he played in Mount Vernon. He was the guy that Slick hurdled. So when I first met him, he says, "Yeah, I'm the guy. That's one of the first things he told me. I'm the guy that Slick Bailey hurdled."
I'm the famous guy. I made the paper because Slick Bailey jumped over me.
It was. I mean, that was an amazing moment. I think it was the first game of the year, and we just could not wait to watch to see what Slick would do.
The coaches, they were screaming. They did not like that. They were like, upfield. He would turn around, run the other way. Like you said, he'd run 100 yards to get to or lose 20. You never knew. Or he'd break one for a touchdown. I mean, it was amazing. He was exciting. Yeah, most definitely.
It was so funny because after you graduated, and he was a year younger than me, it was Chris Warren, who was NFL Hall of Fame nominee. And Chris was the opposite of Slick. He was workmanlike. He was very efficient. He didn't even look like he was trying very hard. If you would have asked which one of these guys is going to be a professional player, he would have said Slick. I mean, he made things look so easy. You just didn't know how good he was. And Slick was just the opposite. Everything looked spectacular.
He was amazing. He was amazing. I got another Nick Hilgert story for you. Yeah. He was a PE teacher, and I was going by the room, the gymnastics room or whatever that had the pull-up bar in it. And he was teaching a class. He goes, "Muzzio, get in here." And I was like, "Okay, yes, sir." And he has class. He goes, "I'm trying to teach these boys to do pull-ups." He said, "Get in here, show them how to do it." I said, "Okay." So, I'm challenged. Here I'm high school. Coaches wants me to do good. So I get up there, boom, boom. I think I knocked out like 25 pull-ups. The problem was I was not in shape for pull-ups, right? I had been, lifting for football or whatever, or track. Actually, we were in track. So I was lifting for track, but not doing pull-ups. So what happened was that night, my arms like locked in this position. My forearms and my bicep area down here had locked because I was not in shape to do that many pull-ups already. And I just did too many. And I had regionals that day. It was I had to throw against Eric Dorsey. I don't know if you remember him from McLean High School. He played for the Giants. Yeah. It was the big throwdown between him and I. And oh my God, I was like such an idiot. Here I could have just done a couple pull-ups and just walked away. There you go, coach. And no, it's a blessing and a curse, right? Sometimes it can be a blessing, and sometimes in that situation, I thought I was done but Coach Hines worked with me and Mr. Nottingham, and they all worked and got my arms straightened back out. But and the meet actually went okay. But not long after that, they just tightened back up again. I learned a very valuable lesson. When you're close to competition, don't do anything stupid. Don't do anything out of the ordinary. Don't try extra stuff or show off. I always learned the hard way. Always learn the hard way, and that was a lesson that I learned well. But Coach Hilgert wrote me into that one.
I think we call that tapering now, and it's funny. I just so happened to talk to Mr. Nottingham a few months ago. I know his daughter-in-law. I just happened to talk to him on the phone. He's doing well. I think he's in North Carolina or South Carolina. He's retired and doing fine. Great guy. One of those underrated sports super coaches at Robinson. I mean, you don't think about the trainer that often. Yeah. He
trainers are my best friends.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, all right. Well, one of the saddest moments your senior year, and a moment I never forgot, it was when Jon Walsh passed. And I was a sophomore, you were a senior, and it was just a regular preseason training day. Jon was in great shape. If there was a second grade athlete at Robinson besides yourself in terms of drive and wanting to be number one, it would be Jon Walsh. I mean, the guy worked his butt off. He was just a great guy. Do you remember that day? My recollection was it really cast a pall upon the rest of our season.
Yeah, it was, so I remember vividly because, so Jon had just come back from a wrestling camp where he would, I had heard they were carrying 80-pound sacks of sand up these hills. I mean, he was in phenomenal shape. And he had a time. So we've done these 1.5 mile runs, part of Coach Henry's regime to see where you're at and all this stuff. And he had a time in the 1.5 mile that I wanted. So I said, hey, Jon, you mind if I run with you? He's like, yeah, no, cool, let's do that. So we started off together and we were running together. And we got, I don't know, I can't remember how many laps it was in. And I thought he tripped and fell because he was right next to me. And me being the way I am, I kept running. I was like, I'm this far into this. I know we're on a good pace because I was running with Jon. I'm going to get that time. But I saw coaches. I said, hey, coach, as I'm running, I said, coach, Jon tripped and fell. Go check him out. And I wasn't much halfway around the track, and all the coaches were all around him. And by the time it came around, like very, very quickly, they were doing CPR, and it escalated, very quickly, and got, it was scary. And unfortunately, he passed. And so I remember that. And it was traumatic. It was very traumatic and sad, very sad, because he was such a great guy. I mean, he had so much going for him. Amazing athlete. Just I don't know why that happens. What I never even actually heard what happened. To be honest with you, I don't know. I'm guessing it was just one of those things that, you hear about those people that have that thing where their heart can stop at any time. And I'm guessing, I don't know. Yeah. I just guessed that maybe that's what happened. I don't know.
Yeah, it really changed everything. I remember after that, we stopped the 3 days. I think we were having 3 days. We went back. We tried to scale things back. We tried to avoid the hot part of the days. And, that really changed training for really punishing kids. I'm not blaming Coach Henry because I love Coach Henry, but everything became a little bit easier then because I think it left us all with a bit of doubt about how hard we can push ourselves in the summertime.
Yeah. Honestly, I never thought about that. I was heads down and with my hyper-focus thing, just as far as me, I always pushed it. If I died that way, I think I would be probably happy at it because it was doing something that I love to do. But that not taking any away from what happened. It was a horrible thing. And but yeah, I think it affected a lot of people as it should, because you have to start to take a look at could it have been those things. But honestly, I don't think it was really that hot. It was hot, but we practiced on way hotter days. I don't believe it was anything the coaches did. And again, it's just my belief, and it was just a terrible thing.
Yeah, I don't think any of us were ever the same after that. But well, anyway, let's go back to your career. You ended up having to make this choice, colleges and also sports. Did you ever consider playing football at the next level?
There was a period where I thought about it, but I kind of fell in love with the decathlon my junior year, and I loved the track events, and I loved the fact that I could make it or break it on my own, and so I just said that's what I want to do. Right. I'm going to do track.
And so did you have some major interests from football schools like
Yeah, Penn State, Tennessee, got a letter from Notre Dame.
Wow.
But I never followed up on any of that. Never. I got to the point, I had the letters and everything. I just was like, I'm not feeling it, right? This is not my passion. It wasn't my passion.
Well, if someone signs with George Mason today, it's not really a big deal because Mason's is a big school. It's well endowed. They got great facilities. But back in 1982, George Mason, I don't even think was considered a university for that many years, maybe several years. Basketball program was on the move. They were doing well. The women's soccer team, men's soccer team, solid programs. But I don't think anyone would consider George Mason one of the top track programs in the country. So how did it end up that, I'm sure Tennessee, and there's a lot of great track programs out there. How'd you end up not choosing them and choosing George Mason?
So John Cook, the head coach at George Mason, he's a genius. He's a track genius. He basically, I remember the recruiting visit that came to my house. He walks in with, so it's John Cook, Ralph White, Ed Zeraw, and Wade Privet. And he says, these are your coaches. They're going to be dedicated to you to do the decathlon. And I was just like, whoa. And he says, we don't have football. We're the #1 program. We have the best trainers. We have the best facility. They were putting in the brand new indoor track. He goes, compare these things to other schools when you go visit, when you go look. And I started to think and look, and I looked at the success that the coaches had, the individual coaches. I mean, they were high school coaches for a long period of time, but they were very successful high school coaches. And Coach Privet put together a plan, and he said, this is how we're going to do it. And these are going to be your individual coaches to help you. Coach Zeraw was my pole vault coach. And I was just like, wow, this is crazy. He's got all this laid out. It's all, it's not like I'm just another number. One of the big schools that was recruiting me was UCLA. And the coach, Coach Bush, he's a legend at UCLA, called me and he said, I want you to come out here and do the decathlon for us, this and that. He goes, but don't take the visit out here unless you're 100% serious. And I'm thinking, well, does that mean that I was kind of like, wow, okay, well, I'm serious, but I may not go there, so I never took the visit. He ended up retiring that year. So maybe he was kind of pushing me away because he was going to retire. I don't know. But Cook just had the whole situation all planned out. And I liked it. I liked the fact that the way that it was all dedicated to learning how to do this decathlon thing. And the whole, anything I needed, Coach Cook and the athletic department got it. All the equipment, the shoes, there's a lot involved. The traveling, the whole situation. I mean, it was amazing, absolutely amazing.
Well, I think two of the biggest recruits in the history of the school at that time were you and Carlos Yates. The late Carlos Yates was a basketball star at Mason. I think he's probably a couple of years older than you, maybe 1 or 2 years older than you.
Yes.
But did you feel like a big fish in a little pond at George Mason, being such a big name at George Mason?
No, I wasn't a big name, right? I was a high school guy. I was good in high school, but I wasn't a big name. So no, not at all, because you have to realize that team is made of very good athletes in individual events. I'm a decathlete. I suck at all of them, right? Compared to them. So, it worked out really good. We had guys run the 445 point, right? My best ever was 48. So I was no big fish, because each one of those guys in their individual events could kick my butt. So I wasn't walking around like, hey, I'm this, I'll beat you. No, the pole vaulters, they could all beat me. The shot put, well, no, there was no shot putter, actually. But yeah, we didn't have many throwers. We had 7-foot high jumpers and 55-foot or 54-foot triple jumpers. I mean, we had, there were really good athletes. And if I could have beat those guys in those individual events, I would have broke the world record easily in the decathlon back then. So there's no big fish in a little pond kind of thing. It's the event that you can do that in, right? Because doing 10 events, you can't learn the top technique in each one of those 10 events. You may not have the body type, you may not have the endurance, you may not have the time, the speed, all the different things that you need for each and every event. When you're a specialist, it's a whole different ballgame. But the decathlete, well, we have to learn just good enough to do. Well, I'm losing points here, so I gotta up my pole vault, or I'm losing points in the shot, so I gotta get better in the shot. So there's always this give and take and looking at the tables and figuring out how you can maximize your score and your points. And no, it was a great situation. It was a great situation. We would run those 400-meter workouts with those guys, and they would kill us, but it made me better.
And that's normal for decathletes. You don't have decathletes that are unbelievable at like the 100 and the 400, maybe even the 1500 in the long jump, but bad at everything else. You generally, a decathlete is just really solid at everything. Is that the way you usually?
Yeah, basic. Well, so yes, that's how you want it. But it takes time for you to get to that point. At the world class, that's kind of how it ends up. You're basically pretty good at everything. Guys like Dan O'Brien, Ashton Eaton, they're freaks of nature when it comes to, I mean, those guys ran like 10, 2 and 100 meters. I mean, they had almost world-class speed. And they, long jump 26 plus feet. And they could jump at the national level. Yeah, they could compete respectively at the national. I would get laughed out. They could stand and jump farther than I could, like going for it. I mean, so but when they first start, their sprints and their jumps are phenomenal, but their throws and some of the other events aren't all that good. But when they get the right coaches, they start to build those up. It's a give and take kind of thing. So.
And you mentioned John Cox, and he had a great recruiting pitch for you. Like, look, we might not be Tennessee and everything, but we're Tennessee plus in track. But as a coach, what are some of the things you learned from him? He was a longtime track coach at George Mason, and he's in the George Mason Hall of Fame, Sports Hall of Fame. What kind of things did you learn from him?
All right, John Cook. So
I'm sorry, John Cook.
I didn't learn a lot from John Cook because John was the guy, Coach Cook was the guy who made it all happen. To me, he was the doer. He was the distance coach. So he didn't really coach me. He made me very nervous because he was really high energy and, twitching and, and I was the kind of guy, I needed a laid back coach. Coach Privet was perfect for me because he was super laid back. Coach Seemuller later, after Coach Privet retired, was super laid back. Those are the guys I needed. I needed guys who would just calm me down because I was jacked. When I would get into a meet, my adrenaline was kicking. I was jacked and I needed to just calm down and get there. Coach Cook, I would have blown everything and I'd have been a mess. The one thing I learned from Coach Cook is you never give up. You never count yourself out. In 1985 at the NCAAs, I was down, I don't know, 150 points or something to Gary Kinder from New Mexico. And this is for the national championship. And he was an amazing javelin thrower. And I stunk up the place. I threw a horrible javelin. And it's the last event before the 1500 meters. So we're going into it and I'm like, Coach Cook comes over, Muzzio, step into my office. He's like, come here. I gotta talk to you. I'm like, okay, what's he gonna say to me? And I go, I got second. He was like, no, not necessarily. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like thinking you're crazy. He goes, Kendra can't run a 1500. And I'm like, huh? And he goes, Kendra can't run a 1500. And I'm like, okay, so he's like, I think if you go for it, you can beat him. I'm like, oh man. I was like, all right, I'll give it everything I have, coach. I will lay it all on the line. So I found the guys that Kevin McGordy and I can't remember the other guy from Campbell University. But anyway, they ran really fast 1500 meters. And I said, hey, I got to run a fast 15. What are you guys going to run? They told me. I said, all right, I'm gonna stick with you as long as I can. And I did. I hung with them. And, I PR'd by, I don't know how many, 8 seconds or 7 seconds or something. And Kinder PR'd too, but he had come to the line in flats. He didn't even have spikes on. He came to the line in flats because he knows he's not a 1500 meter guy. He was very explosive, very fast, but 1500 was just not his thing. And while he PR'd, I got him by just I won by a couple points or something. Probably it was the closest NCAA championships ever, even to this day. And but Cook is the one who talked me into it. And after that, I learned, wow, you never count yourself out. Never count yourself out, because you don't know what can happen.
And the year before, you'd won it pretty easily, right? You'd won the NCAA championship.
Oh, yeah. I had a dream in 1984. I had a dream meet. It was a dream. I had 7 PR, 7 personal records, where you do your best in an event. I mean, everything was just clicking. It was on. It was at Eugene and Hayward Field. Just it's a magical place. There's a ton of people in the stands cheering you on. I mean, they love track and field out there in Eugene, and I just was able. It just all came together. It's the dream. It's the thing that you what you try to do as a decathlete. You try to put the whole 10 events together, and that meet, the whole thing came together. And yeah, that was a good experience.
And that was your sophomore year, right? The one.
That was my sophomore year. Yeah, my
And
first sophomore year.
Your senior year, you did not win though. You did not win national.
That's correct. I got second place to guy at UCLA. I think Jim Bush might have been back then, so he was probably trying. It's like, kid didn't come to my school, but yeah, I got second to a kid from UCLA. Yeah, I had a decent meet. He had a good meet, and he did what he needed to do. He did a great job.
So your college career is over. What is the process next for an elite track and field athlete? I mean, back then to be in the Olympics and international competition, you couldn't go pro. I think it might be different today. Matter of fact, I'm sure it's different today. So what was the process after you left George Mason?
Yeah, so back then, so track's a little different than your leagues, right? Because there's no leagues. It's kind of like in high school. You can make it all the way to the regionals, even though your team doesn't do that well or whatever, or states or whatever. Same thing here. You can compete at any level as long as you have the marks. You could be a freshman in high school and win a world championships. I mean, that's how it works. You're not going to, because it's not going to happen, but it's possible, right? Maybe someday it'll happen. Look at Mondo Duplantis, right? Mondo Duplantis is that amazing pole vaulter, young, super. He jumped his height all the way till he was 19, and then he went. Did he go 20 feet? I don't know. I think he went 20 feet, but anyway, crazy. So track is whatever level you can get to, you can go. You're right. When I graduated from college, we had to be amateurs. There was what was called the Athletic Congress, TAC, and they ran track and field, the governing body for the United States. And we weren't allowed to make money. You weren't allowed to do any of that. And so what happened was they, over time, they figured out, well, this is stupid. We have all these athletes that are can make all this money. I think it allowed us to have this account, and we were allowed to have an account where we could put some money, or so where they regulated it. I didn't really understand it or whatever. I didn't really get any money because I'm not good enough in any one event to nobody wants to pay me to come to a meet, right? So anyway, so we had that account, and then they just opened it up and said, boom, USA Track and Field took over, and then they're like, you can make money, and so that was interesting.
What year was that? What year?
I don't remember, honestly. I don't even remember. It wasn't that big of a thing to me because it wasn't like I had people knocking at my door trying to give me money.
So, well, I know you ended up getting 5th in the Barcelona Olympics, 1992, your first Olympics. Now that was an incredibly amazing time for the decathlon, because we had Dan O'Brien, like as you mentioned before, this great. He was the #1 decathlete in the world. And we also had a guy named Dave Johnson, and they were the Dave and Dan show, and they were on Wheaties Box.
Who's the greatest athlete in the world, Dan or Dave?
Exactly. It was
no.
Yeah. It was great for track and field. It was great for the decathlon. It really brought a lot of focus, because I don't remember, I mean, Bruce Jenner in 76, but there was Daley Thompson. I don't remember the Americans doing so well in those years. But anyway, okay. What's that?
No, you're right. During that period, it was a down period. United States has had a rich history of decathlon champions. Bob Mathias in the 50s, Milt Campbell, Rayford Johnson, Bill Toomey, and then Bruce Jenner, and then we had a period where it got real quiet, and yeah.
So we get to the Olympic trials, and you were talking earlier, pole vault and your height. I believe Dan O'Brien just totally missed the pole vault. And what that did was he basically you basically lost out on the qualification for the Olympic team, and it opened up the door for you to go to the Olympics. Is that what happened?
Yeah. So basically what happens is you every event, you get points, right? There's a book and it has all the points in it. And so for each event, you know, at that level, nobody, even the world record holder, is going to make it to the next level with 0 points in one event. It's just not going to happen. So, and that's basically what happened. He got no points in the pole vault. He no hided in the pole vault. And it's just part of sports. It's what happens, right? Pole vault is a, you know, you can throw 3 out in the discus or throw 3 out, and you could scratch 3 times in the long jump. You can, you know, fall in the hurdles. You know, there's so many things that can happen. So putting a good decathlon together is, it's a challenge.
So did it surprise you that you qualified for the Olympics? That Dan,
No,
it didn't. So you,
it didn't surprise me. I wouldn't have. So I tried in '84. I had the highest score in the country in 1984, and ended up in the hospital. I had an asthma attack after the first day. I tried in '88, but I had knee surgery in '87, and that was the first time I high jumped, and I wasn't back. I wasn't really ready in '88. I wouldn't have kept going had I not thought I could make an Olympic team. Just wouldn't have done it. Yeah. So I was in really good shape. And again, you know, it comes down to that 1500. So I don't really care where I sit until after the javelin, because the javelin's the ninth event. I'm doing everything I can to get as many points as I can. And then after the ninth event, I look at the scores and say, okay, where am I? Who do I have to beat by how many seconds? Right? Just like in 1985. So, and I was, so Eric Long was the other gentleman who made the team in 92. And, you know, I believe I was in really good shape at that time. I believe after what happened in 85, I believe I could have outrun him in the 1500 to make that team. But again, it would have taken a big PR. I would have taken a, you know, all out, and I didn't have to do that this time. I just had to beat Brian Brophy. And I stayed with him for a couple laps, and then I was like, well, he's not going to take off, because I was expecting him to take off because he had to beat me by so many seconds. He didn't take off, and I was like, oh, I got to go. So I took off and ran an okay time, but I was ready to run a really good time. So I don't look at it like, you know, like that. Many people do, but I don't really care what other people think. What
were Dan and Dave like? They're good guys, or were they?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. All the top. So the top 10 decathletes in the United States. So Visa noticed what you noticed, and there was a dry spell for decathletes, and they put together what's called the Gold Medal Program. And they took the top 10 decathletes from the United States, and they got us together twice a year. And they give us a stipend, a living stipend. I think I got $800 or $900 a year, a month, $800 or $900 a month or something. You know, it's a small something to help you with bills and things. And they helped you with shoes and travel allowance. And they got the 5 living gold medalists together, and they would put on a clinic twice a year, and all 10 decathletes would get together. And I was actually the captain of the Visa decathlon team for 5 years, and they were great guys. Oh yeah, we all supported each other. You know, it's basically you go in there, and whoever puts it together is going to walk away, you know, with the title or the championship or whatever it is. And you know, it's not a cutthroat thing. Decathletes and pole vaults, you all support each other. It's a pretty cool. It's not typical in sports, but it's a pretty cool group.
Yeah, it's not like the sprinters that are all kind of these egos. And
oh yeah. No.
So 1992 was an amazing time to go to the Olympics, because the Berlin Wall had come down. You know, the Soviet Union had just collapsed. 1980, 1984, you had boycotts of the Russian game, the Moscow games, and then you had boycotts of the LA games. You know, 92 was a really exciting time. What was the Barcelona experience like, and maybe take us through that competition?
Well, I'll bring it back to basketball, since that's your love.
That's right. Dream Team also. Dream
Team. That's right. It was the first year of the Dream Team. And I'll never forget, we were sitting in there was a stadium. You sat outside in another stadium where you waited for the countries to be announced. So your country gets announced, you walk in. And, while we're all sitting there, we can all see who's there, right? And as we're walking in, we're walking into this corridor. The next thing I know, I turn around and there's Scottie Pippen. I was like, holy smokes, that was so cool. And Magic Johnson. And I mean, I just saw it. It was like, oh my gosh. All of a sudden you're like, wow, this is really cool. But it was kind of weird too. It's like, I'm this poor guy who makes like no money next to this billionaire guy. I mean, it was kind of weird because up to then, sports, it was amateur, right? It was amateur athletes. And so you knew that pretty much everybody's kind of poor unless you were from a country where they subsidized you or whatever. But to have those guys there, it was really cool. It was a really, really neat experience. I mean, Barcelona it was amazing. I had a bad first day, my first 5 events. And I was in 19th place, I think, after the first day. And I remember my wife, she was like, what are you doing? This is the Olympics. I was like, I don't know. She gave me a pep talk. And the next day I had a fantastic day and came back pretty well. But my family was there. My coach, Donnie C. Muller, and his wife went. My buddy, Jim Keys, went. My wife, my family. I mean, we had a blast. We had a great time. It was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Was that one of the highlights of your sports career? Is the Barcelona Olympics?
Oh yeah, the NCAAs, the Olympics, the World Championships. Yeah, definitely.
Now, did the 5th place in the Olympics, did that open up doors for you when you got back? Did it change things for you?
No. You don't, unless you're one of the like top 3 in the world. You're not making a living at the decathlon. You're doing other things. Like I had asthma when I was growing up, and so I actually worked out a deal and became an asthma educator. And I traveled around the country and taught people how to control their asthma. Sorry.
It's okay. I got a couple back here too.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, you're loud and clear.
Okay. And so that's what paid the bills. And my wife worked as well. So that's what paid the bills. But the decathlon and track and field, that did not pay the bills.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you have any other highlights at the World Championship that you got close to doing really well, or was it the Olympic was like your best international result?
No, Olympics was my best international deal. I actually had my best ever my PR, my personal record was actually in Stuttgart, Germany. And I'll never forget that. That was one of the coolest experiences too, because they had like, there were 60,000 people in the stands. We're at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium and in Stuttgart. And I remember being on the runway in the pole vault, and just one of the things you like is clapping, right? It kind of gets you going. Like some people do. I like it when I'm pole vaulted because it gives you a good rhythm and it gets you adrenaline going and everything. And I'll never forget being on the runway, getting the crowd, getting 60,000 people all clapping in unison at the same time for you. That was a memorable experience. It was really cool. And then you make it and the crowd erupts. I mean, that was an awesome experience. I mean, there's a lot of Germany. I broke a toe board. I was in the shot put. There's a board at the front of the circle, and it's usually metal or it's metal or wood. Well, for some reason at the World Championships, they decided to use fiberglass toe board, and I had a really good throw. My first throw, I threw like 55.9, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna go for it and throw really far. Yeah, well, I shot across the circle and shattered the toe board. And Christian Schenk, the German Olympic gold medalist, looked at me and said, "You are the destroyer." So I got a nickname of the destroyer. I can break anything. You can ask my family or anyone who knows me. I can break anything, not on purpose. Believe me, it was always an accident. But we had to wait for half an hour for him to bring a new toe board in so that we could continue the throws. But that was a cool experience. Daley Thompson was there, Jürgen Hingsen, and they had a big rivalry going. And there's a lot of memory. I got to meet and know Daley Thompson on a personal level. He came, he would visit, come to our house, and I met Carl Lewis and got to know. I mean, you just the people that you get to meet and know. And Benita Fitzgerald, and yeah, she's probably one you should probably talk to on your podcast. Benita Fitzgerald, you got to look her up.
Yeah.
But so there's yeah, it was just amazing. It was so much fun, and I wouldn't have traded it for anything. Career, I got on my career later, but yeah. It was good.
So was it a hard decision to retire from competition?
No, I had been doing it for 15 years, and I could see the writing on the wall. Guys were getting faster, and I wasn't getting any faster. I was in my 30s. I wasn't getting faster anymore, and those guys were getting faster and better. A lot of the guys that were fast were getting better at the shot put and the discus and the events they were really bad in. So I was like, oh boy. No, it was time. It was time for me to I'll never forget putting up the poles. It was the Olympic trials in Atlanta, and putting up my poles, and that's where it kind of hit me. It was like, wow, this is the last time that you're ever going to put your poles away. And boom, it kind of was like, whoa, because I wasn't in the running at that point. It's later, the pole vault's later in the meet, and yeah, but it was time. It was good. It's all good.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about your coaching. And you mentioned earlier that coaching is very different than ingesting and learning yourself, and you've had to make an adjustment. What are some of the track athletes hyper coached now, like the other sports, like the soccer, the personal training, and the basketball, the personal training? What's the track environment like?
Hyper coach. Well, if you're saying, are you going to get better if you have a fitness coach as well? Most definitely. Because, if you take the same person and they have the same technique, and one's faster than the other, one who's faster is going to do better, right? Or stronger than the other. One stronger is going to do better. So, there's always, it depends on what you're talking about, right? So Coach Petrosian, he was my coach, my final coach towards the end of my career, through the 93 World Championships and through the Olympic trials in 96. And I was very fortunate because he was an amazing speed and strength coach. Actually, I ran my personal record after training with him at 32 years old. So, that was just, I was like, wow, if I could have, imagine if I would have had him when I was like 18 or 19. But, he's just amazing speed and fitness coach. And he's right there in Reston. And that's what he does. He coaches people and gets them stronger and faster. He coached, he was the Redskin. I think he did some of the Redskins. I know he did it with the soccer team. What's the soccer team?
Oh, the Washington, DC United.
Yeah, DC United. Yeah, he was their speed and strength coach for a long time. And anyway, so yeah, you when you're at the high school level, it's different, because your coaches have to talk. They have to communicate, and as long as you have that communications, that kind of thing can work. Where the problem you have is when the strength coach is tearing you down, and we need you for a meet, right? And all of a sudden, so you're torn down. You have no spring in your legs. You're dead tired. You're exhausted, and now you got to come and it's districts or whatever. So there has to be a coordination. As a coach, I was always for whatever is best for the athlete. That's what I want. But you got to communicate. I have to know what's going on, and I have to have some input into anything you do outside of what we're doing. So, because you can't be doing, these exercises are going to tear you down, heavy plyometrics or something, right before one of these big meets. Now, there's a time and a place for that, don't get me wrong, but you have to communicate, and you have to, so, that exists in every sport. I believe in personal trainers for, sport-specific strength and agility and ability and all that stuff. But there has to be a communication. That communication channel has to be open.
So did you ever coach a person like yourself? Or another way to answer the question is, who's your the most famous, the favorite person that you've had to coach? if you can, if you
Oh,
can.
wow. I put me on the spot, right?
Yeah, I know.
I've had a lot of great kids. No,
Okay.
the kids, that's the greatest part of coaching, is being out there with those kids. They all have their own personalities. They all have their own strengths, their own weaknesses. And I'm the type of coach that I will help them to be as good as they want to be. You know what I mean? Because you have those kids that, some are just out there for social or whatever, and that's cool. I don't have a problem with that, unless it's hurting them, hurting somebody else from achieving their goals. But to be honest, I've had a lot of kids that I really, really enjoyed, and I'm not gonna name any, but I have a lot of kids. But probably the ones that I enjoyed coaching the most were my own kids.
Oh, awesome.
Both of my kids did track at Robinson,
Oh,
and they did really well. My son, funny story, I had the indoor high jump record at Robinson when I was coaching there for 28 years, and he broke my record
wow.
at a meet I was coaching him
That's cool.
down at Virginia Tech, and that was amazing. There's nothing like having your own kid, do something like that. I mean, it was cool. I remember videoing him and there was a guy next to me who knew the whole story, and he cleared it, and he goes, "We have the video." He's like, "Oh, you just got kicked to the curb in your house. You just got kicked to the curb in your house." I'm like, "Yeah." So that was really special. And then my daughter, she's a thrower, and I got to coach her senior year. So my son won state championships twice in the high jump.
Wow.
And then my daughter won the state championship in the shot put. And she went on in college. My son did high jump in college also at ECU, and did very well. And then my daughter won 2 Mountain West championships in the discus. So those were the special times for me, just being able to be with my family and to see them, all the hard work that they put into these things, to this, and to do so well, and to be there. I guess that was the biggest thing, was just to be there was really special.
Yeah, that's great. Well, last question, Rob, and this has been great connecting with you for a long time. You're always such a great guy. But just tell us a little bit about your proposal writing business. It's funny because I bet you'd be great at that, because you are not going to stop until you put the company's best foot forward and make sure you dot all your I's, cross all your T's. Tell us a little bit about your day job.
Yeah, so I'm a proposal consultant. I write proposals for government contractors. I've done proposal management. I've written text sections, pretty much all the different sections except price. I don't do price. Like, I don't do windows. I don't do price. But I specialize in past performance and corporate experience, because I have a technical background. I was a software developer for a while, so I understand the technical side of things. And so I'm able to take things that maybe are not as relevant on the face value, and kind of do some entity resolution kind of thing, and draw out the relevance. So anyway, that's what I do. I write a lot of proposals for a lot of companies, and it's a challenge, and so I like it from that aspect. It can get really stressful sometimes. I'll work on 4 or 5, sometimes 6 proposals at the same time, so it can get pretty crazy. So, but it's that's what I do.
Yeah. Well, we got to check, because my company does government. We've been on government contracts. Sometimes we're more commercial. We do lit support, law firm stuff, but we also do government stuff. So we definitely got to connect on that. But
okay, sounds good.
Yeah, we definitely will. But Rob, I want to thank you for doing this. When I was a young guy, impressionable, I had so much respect for you, because you were a great athlete, but you were just a regular guy. You were always
I
so
didn't pick
nice.
on you.
No. You were. I mean, you might have hit me a couple
I didn't pick
times.
on anybody. I was just teasing.
Yeah. I mean, I was a running back, so you probably hit me a couple times. But you had these Coke bottle glasses. I remember that. You were just a really nice, awesome dude. And then when you got into a competition, your personality changed, and you were 100%. You're getting the job done. But anyway, I always had a lot of respect for you. It's been great to get you on. Someone had recommended you a while ago, and I finally circled back, because I was like, man, I got to get this track and field thing going. And what better person to do it with than Rob Muzzio?
Well, thank you so much, Julian. It's great. I've watched some of your podcasts, and it's very cool. It brings back amazing memories. I mean, thanks so much for doing this. And it's a a pleasure to be on, and I hope that you and your family have a wonderful holidays. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, you as well. And let's definitely keep in touch.
Yeah, definitely. That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, Rob. Yeah, happy
You take
holidays.
care.
Okay, you too,
Thank
man.
you too. Bye-bye.